When a cleaning lady spoke Korean, it discovered the millionaire's amazing hidden story. INSPIR. Mia knelt on the polished marble floor of the sprawling mansion in Los Angeles, her worn-out hands clutching the scrub brush with fierce determination. This wasn't just another rich person's home. It was a portal to a world she longed to be part of, a fleeting glimpse that reminded her of the sacrifices she made for her family back in South Korea. Every dollar from her back-breaking work meant another meal, another year of school, and another shred of hope for her family. And yet, as she scoured the gleaming surfaces, an inexplicable weight nested in her chest, the nagging ache of unfulfilled dreams. She hesitated with each stroke, doubts creeping in. Would her sacrifices ever amount to something? The lavish decor surrounding her felt like a taunt, a reminder of what lay so tantalizingly out of reach. Here, in this gilded cage, she battled the voices in her head, fear that her labor would never equate to the dignity she craved, and the painful longing for a life where she could give her loved ones everything they deserved. In the grinding clutches of her routine, the sparkle of wealth drummed a lonely rhythm in her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That day, while dusting off aging silver trinkets, she felt an unusual energy hanging in the air. The mansion, often silent except for the echo of her labor, was suddenly disrupted as the heavy door creaked open. Mark glided in, a ghost of the vibrant businessman he once was, his silhouette marked by the shadows of grief. Mia glanced up, her heart stumbling as their eyes met. The emptiness etched in his features mirrored her bottled dreams, but there was no room for sympathy. Her own weight pressed down heavier. "Excuse me," she said softly in Korean, half expecting him to dismiss her. Instead, to her shock, he paused. For a heartbeat, vulnerability replaced his guarded expression. Something about her sincerity shifted the air, lingering in the space between them. Here was a man of immense wealth, yet somehow amidst the opulence he looked utterly alone. In the awkward silence, Mia felt a strange urgency propelling her forward. "Your family," she started, fumbling. "They worked hard for this place." Each word felt like a lifeline tossed into turbulent waters. Could she dive deeper into the narratives hidden in crevices of silver and dust? What if she could reach him, help him uncover the roots he'd buried beneath his empire? But the rush of connection faltered. Mia felt a pang of fear. What if they were too different? As his brow furrowed with uncertainty, societal prejudices loomed like dark clouds overhead, their potential storm threatening the fragile bond they had begun to forge. She could see it in his eyes, doubts swirling, insecurities rising. Would he ever see her as anything but a cleaning lady? Just then, a crack of thunder sent tremors through the mansion, pulsing through the floor beneath her knees, a reminder that storms could shatter illusions of safety and success. The tempest swelled outside, much like the turmoil within them, igniting uncertainties that threatened to drown their connection. Within the chaos, Mia found herself staring into Mark's troubled gaze. She was about to say something important that could change everything, when a powerful wave crashed against the mansion door, the sound reverberating through the walls. Desperation twisted in her gut. Here they stood, on the brink of an uncharted territory, and the storm didn't just threaten the house. It threatened everything they both had built within. Would this encounter be the beginning of a new story? Or would the storm decimate what little hope they clung to? In the heavy ambiance of the mansion, two lives teetered on the precipice of transformation. Mia's heart raced as the thunder stormed outside. In that moment, it was not just nature's fury but something deeper within her, an urgent call to action. What if vulnerability bridged their worlds, allowing her words to break through the armor he had built around himself? "Your family," she began again, her voice raw, barely louder than the rain pattering against the window frames. This place, it was built on their dreams too. With each pronouncement, she steadied her trembling hands, taking confidence from the gravity of her truth. Mark's eyes flickered, recognition dawning along with something akin to hope. "What do you know of my family?" he asked, his tone laced with skepticism, yet a thread of curiosity threaded through his question. Mia resolved to meet his gaze, pushing past her fears. "I know that sacrifices were made just as mine were," she replied courageously, as if her own pain lent weight to every syllable. "We might not share the same status, but our stories intersect in ways you do not see." Mark's expression shifted subtly. The wall separating rich and poor blurred momentarily, and he took a step closer, swallowing hard as the truth of her words settled over him like a warm embrace. The loneliness they both wrestled with began to converge into a shared understanding, one that transcended wealth and status. The storm outside raged on, but within the confines of this gilded mansion, a potent silence enveloped them. In that quiet, as thoughts flowed unencumbered, Mia sensed the pulse of opportunity. With newfound resolve, she dared to articulate what had begun to ferment within her. "Every stroke of my brush, every corner I clean, it connects me deeper to my dreams. I wanted to be an artist." The confession hung between them, a tender offering, revealing the vulnerability tucked away beneath her hard-working exterior. Mark shifted, intrigued. "An artist?" "Yes," she responded, her spirit lifting like the veil of morning mist beneath the sun. "And that's how I see this place. Each object tells a story, each surface reflects a history worth preserving." The flicker in his eyes revealed an awakening of sorts, igniting her courage further. Perhaps her narrative could ignite his, even in the insignificance of her role. "What if you began to see your family's legacy as a story, not a burden? You could honor those who came before you. Build upon it. Create something that combines who you are with who they were." Mark opened his mouth to respond but hesitated. A whirlpool of contemplation washed over his face. The barriers built by unexpressed grief and harsh expectations threatened the resolve he had crafted for a lifetime. There was unyielding emotion in his gaze, tinged now with something raw, a spark of ambition. Something shifted within Mia. She had set a process of change in motion. Ideas collided in her mind like the storm outside. In this moment, she realized that her own life had been a canvas, tinted with muted colors. But perhaps she could learn from this meeting, not just to navigate her own aspirations but also to help Mark redefine his. Yet, as the storm continued shaking the mansion's foundations, doubt clung to her thoughts. What if Mark's entrapment and grief overshadowed her bravery? And what if, in trying to pull him from his shadows, she lost sight of her own dreams? Their connection, fragile yet laden with potential, was a testament to the unpredictability of human experience. Mia glanced at Mark, the vulnerability in his face cutting deeper than words. Could he trust her? Would he pursue a path shaped by both their tales? Her heart raced as she sought his answer, each moment stretching like an elastic band ready to snap. Suddenly, a striking bolt of lightning illuminated the room for just an instant, leaving behind an afterimage of realization. "Let us not waste this moment," she whispered, the notion of forging ahead trembling on her lips. Would he dare take that first step, embracing the uncertainty of a new story together? The air buzzed thick with unspoken possibilities. With the storm still raging outside, they stood on the edge of revelation. Just then the front door burst open, revealing an unexpected guest, drenched and wild-eyed. The arrival heralded not just chaos, but change. Would this intrusion unravel everything they had begun to weave? Or would it forge their destinies together? The raw energy from the storm slipped into the room, igniting an atmosphere already charged with possibility. Mia's gaze darted toward the door, unsure whether this new presence would disrupt the fragile connection she had begun building with Mark. The emerging figure, still cautious but brimming with urgency, stepped fully into the room. "Is Mark here?" The stranger, soaked to the skin, shouted above the din of thunder. It was a woman, her dark hair plastered against her forehead, eyes wide with an unsettling mix of fear and determination. The abruptness of her entrance fractured the moment between Mia and Mark, casting a shadow over what had just begun to bloom. "I'm Mark," he responded, taking a step forward. The intrigue in his voice faltered, supplanted by a curiosity that questioned what this woman wanted and why she appeared so breathless with urgency. "I need your help," she implored, her voice trembling with the weight of unsaid truths. "I'm Joe. A friend. Sort of. You might not remember me, but I was close with your father before." She hesitated, glancing at Mia, measuring the implications of her words. Before things changed. Mia's heart raced at the revelation. Mark's father had been a complex man. Memories twisted within her, recalling whispered conversations about familial shadows, lost aspirations, and the specter of unfulfilled dreams. As Joe's words hovered in the air, it was evident that they held the potential to unearth Mark's hidden struggles. Just as their conversation had begun, Mark stood frozen, tension coursing through him. "What do you mean? How did you know my father?" His voice cracked, revealing the depth of his unresolved questions. Joe took a moment to steady herself, then plunged into the past with fraught candor. "Your father loved the arts more than anyone realized, but he never found a way to express that. He was always trying to fight his own demons, much like you have been. I wanted to tell you, to help you understand that legacy is not merely a chain but a canvas of choices." As Joe spoke, Mia's faith in her instincts intensified. This unexpected encounter could serve as a catalyst for Mark to reshape the trajectory etched by his family's past. Sometimes it took a stranger to reveal the most profound truths. She had felt its tremors in her own life. Mia grasped her opportunity keenly. She could see the flickering of hope in Mark's eyes even amid confusion. "Mark," she interjected, her voice warm as she attempted to weave together their disparate threads. "Maybe this is what you need. You deserve to know your father's story, the full narrative that has built the man you are." "I barely even knew him," Mark admitted, the edge of frustration surfacing. "All I've felt is the weight of expectations." "This is your chance," she urged, a fierce determination igniting within her as she realized that this could be a turning point for both of them. Find the artist he was. Make it part of who you are, not simply the shadow over your life. As Joe nodded in agreement, Mark's expression twisted between grief and resolve. "What do I do?" he whispered, barely audible against a backdrop of thunder. "Let us show you," Joe offered, her voice steadier now. "I'll fill in the blanks, tell you things you didn't know, and you, Mark, can start your own journey of discovery." As the words settled heavily in the air, Mia felt her own dreams suspended in the balance. She had dared to step closer to Mark's world, yet now there was not just Mark's legacy to consider. Her own artistic desires began to stir, challenged yet emboldened by the potential shifting around her. But the storm had not finished its dance, and outside the mansion, another gust of wind rattled the windows, signaling that the chaos was far from over. The conversation had taken a turn toward clarity, but would it survive the winds of truth and pain yet to come? In that moment of uncertainty, Mia realized there was no turning back now. They were on a precipice, both Mark and she, poised between revelation and vulnerability. As the door creaked ominously, a chill filled the space, heralding new chaos. What fresh challenges awaited? Would the truth liberate them or entangle their lives even further? Mia's breath hitched in her throat. It was time to discover what lay ahead. Mark stood at the threshold of a past he had barely known, and yet its shadows loomed oppressive and tangible. The room pulsed with electric intensity, and Mia could feel the tide turning, a swell of emotions rising within Mark as Joe's presence carved an unexpected path to his father's legacy. "Let us show you." The phrase echoed in his mind, the promise of guidance mingling with the weight of fear. His pulse quickened. This was not just about confronting the father he had lost. It was an invitation to unearth the part of himself that had remained buried under layers of expectation and doubt. But how could he navigate this newfound journey when so much was unknown? Jo stepped closer, her soaked clothes clinging to her frame, her presence grounded despite the tempest raging outside. "We have to start somewhere," she urged gently yet firmly, as if breaking this momentous task into digestible parts. "Your father had dreams that he never acted on, but his art was his voice. You can give that voice life again." Mark's brow furrowed, the thought swirling like an approaching storm. "I've never considered myself an artist," he stated, his voice barely above a whisper, laced with disbelief. Mia interjected, her tone punctuated with encouragement. "But what if you've inherited that potential? This could be your chance to redefine what being your father's son means. Explore what you truly want, separate from expectations." The notion hung heavily in the air, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. Mark felt a flicker of something stirring within him, a desire for freedom, for self-expression that had long been stifled under the weight of inherited responsibility. "I don't even know where to begin," he admitted, the vulnerability reflecting in his eyes. Jo offered a reassuring smile. "That's the point, Mark. No one starts at the finish line. I can share stories, pieces of your father's art, and the struggles he faced. That's how I began. Learning about others led me to discover my own voice." Mia observed the dynamic, feeling the magnetic pull of possibility. This wasn't merely Mark's moment, it was hers too. Her own artistic dreams flickered in her mind, longing for expression, yet stifled by the fear of failure and the burden of expectations she faced within her family. They were all caught in a moment suspended in time, and it felt ripe for transformation. "What if we explore your father's work together?" Mia suggested, her heart racing at the prospect of collaboration. "Maybe it would help both of us." The idea floated between them, full of hope and uncertainty. Mark hesitated, deep in thought. "I've never shared my life with anyone like this," he confessed, his vulnerability a raw edge hovering in the air. "What if I find something frightening, or worse, that it leads to disappointment?" "Or you might discover something beautiful," Jo urged, her voice a steady current against his fears. "Life is all about taking the leap, isn't it? Trust in the process." As the rain lashed against the windows like a heart thunderous with anticipation, Mia felt her own trepidation shift. By supporting Mark, she would be confronting her own artistic insecurities head-on, but the argument pulsing within her begged a larger question. Were they prepared for what they'd uncover? Would delving into the past reveal buried secrets or simply reaffirm their fears? The collective weight of their fears hung heavily in the air, but so did an ember of determination. Mark exhaled slowly, the moment a turning point. "Okay," he finally uttered, the resolve finding a tentative foothold. "Let's start. Together." As they began to formulate a plan, a loud clap of thunder rumbling above served as both a reminder of the external storm and the tempest inside their hearts. But just as excitement began to swell, a sudden crash from the adjacent room broke their focus, sending icy dread coursing through Mia's veins. Was something more ominous lurking within the walls of this mansion? The ripple of unease surged. What storm had just been unleashed and what revelations would come with it? Her thoughts spiraled. This journey wasn't merely about exploring Mark's father, but unearthing the stories hidden within themselves. What else might they discover, and at what cost? The crash reverberated through the air, a gut-wrenching jolt that shattered their tentative resolve. Mark instinctively took a step back, his breath faltering as the uncertainty of what lay beyond that door clawed at him. Was it merely a falling object? Or had something within the mansion made itself known, echoing the storm brewing both outside and within him? Mia's heart raced. She felt herself torn between concern for Mark and an ever-growing curiosity about the mansion's secrets. "Do you think we should check it out?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the fear of confronting the unknown pooling in her gut. Jo's steady gaze didn't waver, and she placed a gentle hand on Mark's shoulder. "It's just as likely that whatever it is could lead us closer to what we need to find. Your father's past isn't just locked in his art. It's woven into the very fabric of this place." Mark's mind oscillated between the urge to remain sheltered from potential danger and the bubbling excitement of uncovering layers of his father's life he had never grasped. But what if it terrifies me? What if I'm not ready? The anxiety thrummed in his chest, a physical manifestation of doubt he couldn't ignore. "Then we face it together," Jo asserted, her calm demeanor radiating reassurance. "Whatever's inside is just as much a part of you as it is a part of him." Taking a deep, shaky breath, Mark squared his shoulders. He had already given in to his fear once today. He wasn't about to back down a second time. "All right, let's go see what it is." With apprehension knocking at the door of his mind, they crept toward the adjacent room, the floor creaking underfoot. Each step felt heavy, laden with the weight of what revelations might await. The air was thick with anticipation, each pulse of his heart mirroring the deepening intrigue of the unknown. As they pushed the door open, an unexpected sight greeted them. An old half-broken easel lay tipped over, its canvas abandoned in a tangle of dust and cobwebs. To the side, a cluster of fragile glass jars shimmered, their contents murky, but unmistakably remnants of paint. Memories stirred within Mark. A glimpse of his father hunched over artwork, speaking passionately about color and creation. "Look at this," Jo pointed, kneeling near the easel. "It seems like he was working on something here before. Life got in the way." Mark's eyes roamed over the remnants. There was beauty in the debris, an untold story that beckoned him forward. A low murmur of clarity began to cut through the fog of his confusion. This wasn't just a broken easel. It was a manifestation of his father's unrealized dreams. Mia crouched beside Jo, feeling a pang of revelation resonate within her. "Your dad clearly had a vision. It's almost like he was waiting for you to finish what he started." She offered a tentative smile, her voice barely concealing her excitement. "Rediscovering his art could help you find yours." Mark felt the warmth of those words seep into his heart, igniting the embers of inspiration that had languished for so long. Could this truly be his path to artistic liberation? But amidst this burgeon of hope, a chilling reminder loomed. Diving into his father's legacy could also trigger painful truths. The contradictions of love and loss were bound to surface. What if finding my father's truth leads to more questions than answers? His voice trembled slightly, grappling with newfound uncertainties. "Then we'll ask them together," Jo reassured him, her commitment unwavering. In that moment, Mark understood he was embarking on a path of dual discovery, not only of his father's artistry but of his own becoming. Yet as he bent down to examine the scattered remnants of the past, the lights flickered ominously, plunging them into darkness. Mia gasped, gripping Mark's hand tightly. "What was that?" Their hearts raced as shadows began to twist and curl around them, signaling that their exploration was just beginning. What secrets lay hidden in this house? What truths awaited them in the dark? Mark stood on the precipice, feeling the profound weight of his choices. This was no longer solely about his father. It was about his own awakening. As Mark contemplated the swirling darkness, he realized he must confront not just the past but also the veiled fears and hopes within himself. "Together, we'll figure it out," he whispered, even as a rattle echoed from the depths of the room, setting the stage for a revelation that could reshape everything they thought they knew. The darkness enveloped them, a suffocating blanket that seemed to consume all sound. Mark's heart raced, the clamor of anxiety and anticipation drowning out the thunder that rolled outside. With his breath quickening, he instinctively leaned closer to Jo and Mia, the warmth of their presence grounding him. "Stay close," he murmured, an unconscious plea against the encroaching shadow that haunted the edges of his mind. As they stood motionless, an uneasy calm settled, broken only by the whisper of their breaths mingling in the air. Mark's instincts urged him to retreat, but the urge to uncover his father's secrets tugged insistently, an invisible thread binding him to the remnants of the old easel. It was a duality that stirred something fierce within him, the fear of danger mingling with an insatiable curiosity to discover. With a gulp, he stepped deeper into the darkness, his fingers brushing the wall for support. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like thunderclaps, challenging him to forge ahead. What if this darkness hides more than secrets, he thought, apprehending the very real possibility of unearthing painful truths. Yet what terrified him more was the idea of retreating back into the complacency of ignorance. "Mark, look," Joe whispered, nudging him gently. A faint glimmer caught his eye, a stray sliver of moonlight slicing through a dusty window, illuminating a section of the floor cluttered with old art supplies. Paintbrushes scattered like fallen soldiers, tubes of paint were misshapen like forgotten dreams. "It's just art supplies," Mark said, but he knew that wasn't accurate. This disarray was laden with nostalgia, with words left unsaid and pictures left unpainted. It was a fragment of a past too complicated for him to fully grasp yet. He dropped to one knee, reaching for a paintbrush. It felt solid in his hand, a tool that could create rather than destroy. He squeezed it lightly, contemplating the relationship between intention and outcome. My father intended to do something with all this, he thought. He wanted to express, to share. Mia crouched beside him, her curiosity palpable. "Every brushstroke tells a story, don't you think? There is something beautiful about transforming chaos into creativity." Her words resonated, sparking a flicker of understanding that glimmered brighter than the darkness surrounding them. Perhaps this moment wasn't solely about unearthing his father's past. It was also about unraveling his own. He had always shied away from the notion of artistry, fearful of judgment and rejection. But here, in this derelict room, he couldn't deny the growing tide of determination rising within him. What if I embraced this as my own? He wondered silently. The thought stirred something deep within, morphing fear into possibility. What if I stepped out of my father's shadow and into my own light? The fear of facing the unknown, could it transform into a canvas of creation? Mark rose, bolstered by a sense of ownership over the artistry that resided in the forgotten debris. The loss he had carried for so long was becoming less of a burden and more of a catalyst. "Together," he repeated, drawing strength from Joe and Mia, "we can face whatever the darkness holds." He moved deeper into the room, fueled by newfound resolve. But as they continued exploring, a chilling sound erupted from the far corner, shattering their contemplative moment. "What was that?" Joe's voice held a tremor that echoed the fear in Mark's own heart. A large portrait slid from its perch, crashing to the ground with a deafening thud, the frame wordlessly revealing its painted secret. A face Mark recognized, a haunting glance that felt both accusatory and familiar, lay hidden behind layers of dust, a literal reflection of his unresolved struggles. The past was no longer dormant, it was conspiring to draw him in. Could this be the very confrontation he had feared? As the shadows danced and swirled around them, a singular question echoed in Mark's mind. Was he ready to face the story his father left behind, even if it meant confronting his own insecurities? With the portrait lying fractured on the floor, Mark felt the weight of the moment press down on him. Each breath he took echoed a realization. The time had come to face what had long been concealed. Mark stood frozen for an instant, his gaze locked onto the painting that had shattered the silence. The face, a blend of familiarity and estrangement, stirred emotions he had long since buried. It wasn't just a portrait. It was the embodiment of choices, disappointments, and the legacy of his father's complexities. What do we do? Mia's question was laced with concern, breaking him from his reverie. Each flickering shadow seemed to cascade deeper into his psyche, drawing out insecurities he had hoped to leave undisturbed. "Let's look closer," Mark managed to say, though the uncertainty hung heavy in his voice. He approached the fallen canvas as if it were a dormant creature ready to spring forth with truths hidden in its layers. With trembling hands, he turned it over, revealing the painted visage that had haunted his dreams, the unmistakable features of his father, a man he had idolized yet resented for the unresolved tension that existed between them. "This is," Mia whispered, the gravity of recognition weighing down her words. Mark caught Joe's eye, and for a fleeting moment they understood. They were caught in a moment of revelation. The darkness that had lingered was now tangible, a gaping void filled with unspoken words and buried emotions. "He never talked about this," Mark confessed, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his tone. "I never knew this side of him." Mia knelt beside him, brushing dust away with a gentle touch. "Maybe this is the time to uncover it," she suggested, her voice soothing. "What if your father left this for you to find?" Her words ignited a spark of bravery within him. Perhaps these forgotten stories weren't just remnants of the past, but entries into a deeper understanding of who he was meant to be. Mark picked up the paintbrush again, revolving it in his fingers, as if it were a key to unlock memories still to be forged. Would he want me to finish what he started? He pondered aloud, the thought echoing in the cold room. "And what does that mean for you?" Joe added, leaning in with genuine intrigue. "What if you found your own voice through his story?" That question pierced Mark's consciousness, propelling him to explore an avenue he once rejected outright. The artist's world, previously an intimidating expanse of criticism and self-doubt, now appeared inviting, a realm where failure could sprout into creativity rather than inhibition. He thought of the unfinished canvases lying in the corner, waiting for someone to breathe life back into them. "I need to do this." A resolute whisper emerged from deep within him. "I need to confront his truth to carve out my own." With newfound resolve, Mark began to visualize what he could create. He imagined a narrative steeped in struggle and triumph, layered with the colors of his father's history but infused with his voice. Yet even as he envisioned the paintings he could produce, unease settled into his stomach. This process would require him to look at his father's choices yet again, face the anguish mingling with admiration, and finally understand how their paths had diverged. The task ahead loomed large, a daunting climb demanding every ounce of courage he possessed. As Mark resumed his place among the art supplies, shadows ensnared him again. He wouldn't just be reanimating forgotten history, he'd be facing his own limitations, the walls of his own insecurities. "Mark." Joe's voice pulled him back as they surveyed the room. "There's more to this place than just paintings. It feels alive with history." The weight of her observation hit home. It wasn't just about his father's story. It could encompass his journey out of the darkness. "It's time I left the past behind," he thought defiantly. "I won't let it dictate who I become." Each brushstroke he envisioned could signify another step towards resilience, another confrontation with his flawed perceptions. But as he prepared for the monumental task ahead, a sudden rustling came from the corner of the room, pulling their attention back to the shadows. They exchanged glances, and an unspoken question hung heavy in the air. What more lay hidden in the depths of this place? Mark inhaled deeply, adrenaline flooding through him. A mix of anticipation and fear swirled in his core. The moment had come to confront more than just memories. Something was waiting, and if he didn't seize it now, understanding the urgency of their situation, he swelled with determination. "Let's find out what else is here," he declared, inviting his friends to step forward with him once more into the heart of uncertainty. What awaited them could redefine not just his view of the past, but the very essence of who he hoped to become. The darkness loomed, whispering hints of secrets woven into his father's legacy, a legacy that might just lead him to his own path. The shadows shifted, and with every step toward the source of the sound, Mark felt the raw pulse of possibility unfurling around him. Mark's heart raced as he approached the source of the rustling sound, with Mia and Joe flanking him like steadfast companions in a treacherous expedition. The air crackled with the anticipation of revelation, each step weighted with the shadows of the past cascading around him. What he might uncover in this hidden depth could dismantle the barriers he had spent years erecting against his own vulnerabilities. As they neared a dimly lit corner of the room, Mark squinted into the shadows, his pulse throbbing in synchronization with the impending tension. A battered trunk, dust-covered and half-open, lay before them. He hesitated, replaying his father's unguarded moments in his mind. Their conversations filled with veiled wisdom, mixed with unexpressed pain. Every unspoken word echoed louder now, urging him to confront what lay ahead. "Should we open it?" Joe asked, her tone uncertain yet supportive, as if giving Mark the agency to proceed. "Yes," he whispered, driven forward by an instinct so pure it felt almost primal. He reached down and clasped the rusted latch, his hands trembling not from fear but from the rising tide of expectation and anxiety. With a decisive flick, the trunk creaked open, unveiling a trove of meticulously organized papers, sketches, and photographs. The contents revealed layers of his father's life that had remained shrouded in mystery. His breath caught as he exposed a collection of letters. The ink smudged, hinting at unfiltered emotions that had likely never crossed spoken words. As he sifted through the brittle pages, a particular letter caught his eye. It was addressed to him, penned in his father's elegant yet hasty script. He opened it with a reverence that bordered on the sacred, heart pounding as his father's voice, now mere ink on paper, began to guide him into an exploration of shared silence. "Mark," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I've left this world behind. I've buried pieces of my past in hopes that you wouldn't have to carry the weight of my choices. But know this, you have a depth of spirit that I never found in myself. I may have been a poor guide, but I hope my mistakes lead you to great things. Art was my release, but it may also be your salvation." Each word unfurled layers of doubt and affirmation within him. Mark's fingers brushed the letters as he absorbed the nuances of his father's struggles, the failures and the victories painfully etched into every sentence. Mark felt like a voyager discovering uncharted waters. Everything that felt lost began to crystallize into something transformative. The realization dawned on him. His father's complexities were not shackles, but a legacy. What did he mean by salvation? Art, or something else? He pondered, glancing at Mia and Joe for reassurance. Mia knelt beside him, her brow knitted with sympathy and curiosity. "It sounds like he wanted you to create your own narrative, to find freedom where he could not. Maybe it's time I embrace what I've always feared," he responded, the words tumbling out like the revelations before him. "To transform this burden into something profound." With renewed determination, Mark began to sift through the sketches, piecing together his father's artistic journey. Each unfinished drawing illuminated a part of his father's soul, yearning for connection, for understanding. They had shared a language of unexpressed grief, one that painted the complicated picture of their relationship. "I'll finish what you started," Mark muttered under his breath, understanding now that each brushstroke would be a dialogue between them, a reconciliation of sorts. But before he could lose himself in this journey of discovery, another sound broke the concentration, a faint echo, almost like a whisper grazing the edge of the room. It emanated from the farthest shadows, pulling him back into uncertainty. "Did you hear that?" Joe asked, her eyes darting toward the sound, which now felt like a clear invitation. Mark felt a shiver crawl down his spine. What else had been hidden away? "There's more here. I can feel it," he said, his resolve hardening. He gestured for them to follow, a call to move beyond the limits of their fears. As they ventured deeper into the shadows of uncertainty, Mark was determined not just to confront his father's truth, but to uncover what lay ahead, not just for understanding, but for the chance to redefine everything he believed about himself. What other secrets could reshape his reality, challenging the very narrative he sought to build? The darkness beckoned, and with each step, anticipation mingled with doubt, igniting a fire within him that he couldn't ignore. What awaited them might unveil not only fragments of his past, but also the keys to his own undeniable evolution. Mark moved cautiously, the shadows wrapping around him like a cloak. Each step drew him deeper into the unknown, a place not just of physical darkness but emotional exploration. It felt as if his father's spirit lingered, guiding him with whispers from the past. The trunk had offered a glimpse into a life long hushed, but now Mark hungered for the next revelation that might lead him closer to understanding himself. "Where's it coming from?" Mia's voice broke the thick silence, her brow furrowed with concern. Joe stood close, her expression a mix of intrigue and trepidation. "I don't know, but I need to find out," Mark replied, his voice steadier than he felt. The sense of urgency propelled him. The unknown could be the catalyst he needed to catalyze his own metamorphosis. As they approached the source of the sound, the atmosphere shifted. Dust particles danced in the beams of light like embers in a dying fire. Mark felt the weight of anticipation pressing against his chest. a delicate balance between fear and the tantalizing possibility of truth. He reached out toward the wall, tracing its rough surface, searching for something hidden. There it was again, a soft whisper as if the room itself held secrets in its breath. It resonated with a resonance he couldn't quite place. He closed his eyes, letting the sound guide him, and in that moment felt a strange resonance within himself, a yearning to confront something buried deep within. What if this wasn't just about his father? What if it was about him, too? Mark's heart raced as he continued moving. The more I uncover, the more I feel the pieces of both our lives are interwoven, he thought, a mixture of fear and excitement bubbling within him. The sensation filled his chest, a tether between past and present. Suddenly, at the edge of the wall, his fingers brushed against a loose brick. With an instinct fueled by desperation, he pushed it in. To his astonishment, the wall creaked open slightly, revealing another compartment inside. Dark and enigmatic, like an uncharted terrain. "Are you sure about this?" Joe whispered, apprehensively stepping forward. "I have to be," Mark replied, and even to himself the conviction in his words surprised him. As he peered into the darkness, he saw the glint of what appeared to be a small box nestled among cobwebs. The box was beautiful, yet ominous, intricate designs carved into its surface, signaling it was precious, perhaps even dangerous. This was a marked divergence from the letters that had painted the more emotional, human side of his father. This felt like an emblem of power and secrets. "What do you think it is?" Mia asked, her excitement mingled with a hint of fear. Mark hesitated, torn between the allure of potential danger and the raw need for answers. "I don't know, but it feels important." His determination solidified. Whatever it contained, it seemed pivotal. It was an artifact of his father's hidden worlds. With resolve, he reached for the box. The moment his fingers clasped around it, he felt an electric pulse surge through him, an intertwining of his narrative with that of his father's. The sensation unspooled memories, igniting a flicker of courage so electric that for a heartbeat he felt invincible. "Here goes," he whispered. The box creaked open, revealing a collection of photographs stacked beneath layers of parchment. Each one was carefully preserved, each image a portal into the hidden life his father had lived. As he examined a faded photograph of a young man, an unfamiliar rush coursed through him. "Is that him?" Mia asked, her voice betraying a mix of disbelief and awe. Mark nodded, his mind racing. The depth of his father's experiences, the relationships, the moments of vulnerability. Each layer revealed secrets not just about his father, but also about legacy, the weight of expectations, and the choices that shape lives, even his own. But as he flipped through the images, one photo captured his attention. Buried deep among the others, it exuded an aura of mystique. It showed his father standing with a group of artists, but something felt unsettling about the ambiance. An invisible thread of tension seemed to lace through it. "What if there's more to discover?" he mused aloud, tinged with both fear and anticipation. The photographs contained more than memories. They were fragments of unfinished stories yearning to breathe again. "Mark, we need to be careful," Joe cautioned, the unease palpable. "We don't know where this could lead." Was her warning valid? Mark was torn. The fear of retracing his father's shadow grappled with the burgeoning sense of empowerment stirring within him. What if he could transform those shadows into something enlightening? "I need to dig deeper," Mark decided, emboldened by courage fueled by curiosity as whispers of discovery danced on the air around him. This is about more than closure. It's about understanding, about crafting a new narrative that honors his legacy. With each new photograph, the threads of his father's hidden world began to weave into a tapestry that spoke of potential not yet realized. A new path unfurled before him, one that beckoned him forward into realms of understanding, creativity, and perhaps the wisdom he long sought. What lay beneath the next photograph could unveil secrets that tethered him to a life richer than he ever imagined. As he prepared to dive further into the past, he sensed that this quest wouldn't just map out his father's uncharted life. It might just illuminate the darkest corners of his own. As Mark sifted through the photographs, he uncovered not merely a legacy, but threads that vibrated with untapped potential, a timeless connection that resonated deeply within him. The excitement shimmered in the air, compelling him forward as he gazed at each captured moment, piecing together the patchwork of his father's world. It was then he realized that the journey he had embarked upon was as much about discovery as it was about reclamation. One photograph caught his attention, a canvas splattered with vivid colors, orchestrating a chaotic symphony of emotions through bold strokes. There was a fire in that brushwork, a raw honesty that spoke to him. Next to it, a faded note read, "Art is freedom." His father's handwriting a bridge across time that ignited Mark's heart. As the echoes of the past collided with his reality, Mark understood. His father had fought valiantly against his own demons, desperately aware of the fracture between personal ambition and familial obligation. This realization became a catalyst, illuminating Mark's path toward authenticity. He turned to Mia and Joe, the flame of determination igniting in his chest. This is what I need to honor my father," he declared, his voice steady. "He might have felt imprisoned by expectations, but I have the chance to change that narrative. I can transform these fragmented tales into something whole." "Yes, that's it," Mia exclaimed, her eyes brightening with shared enthusiasm. "You have that gift in you, Mark. It's time to bring it to life." Their words forged a bond stronger than any fear he had clung to. Dual discovery unfolded in that creaky room, as the tempest outside faded into an insignificant backdrop against the storm brewing within Mark's heart. He felt ready to unearth his artistic voice, releasing the shackles that had long constrained him. Joe placed a supportive hand on his back. "We're here for you, whatever you choose to do with this," she encouraged gently, grounding him in the moment. His resolve crystallized then. Art was his escape. It can be mine too, my emancipation from uncertainty, my legacy forged from his. I will own this journey. With renewed vigor, Mark set about collecting the images, guessing they possessed the power to reshape both his identity and creation narrative. Each brushstroke in the photographs represented not just his father's resentments and pitfalls, but also a vibrant pulse of creativity that had flourished in the depths of despair. As he leaned into the parts of himself previously taboos, past regrets transformed into colorful strokes across an unwritten canvas, emotions unspooled, and dreams intermingled. This is the bridge, he thought, feeling the rush of intergenerational tethering course through him, a reclaiming of voices long unheard. But before he could plunge headlong into this newfound ambition, another faint sound echoed, a scuttling noise from another part of the room. Clarity surged, creating a spark of apprehension. What else lies hidden in this space? He wondered aloud. I think we need to investigate, Joe replied, determination surging in her voice. If there are more truths within this house, we can't shy away from them now. Mark felt a renewed sense of adventure pulse within him, an invitation beckoning him to uncover everything his father had left behind. Together, he affirmed, let's confront whatever is still concealed in these walls. With that declaration, they began to explore the remaining corners of the dim space. Every inch carried a hint of stories waiting to be told, a treasure trove of memories held captive by neglect. Mark felt grounded in purpose, motivated by a desire not only to rediscover his father's legacy, but to transform it into something that blended the past with his burgeoning identity. As they ventured forward, stumbling upon what appeared to be a door slightly ajar, Mark paused, taking a deep breath as anticipation twirled within him. The strength gathered inside his heart resonated like a drum. He was ready to confront whatever lay beyond. Pushing the door open further, Mark was greeted by another forgotten room, the scent of aged wood and lingering paint overwhelming his senses. As his eyes adjusted, something remarkable caught his attention, a half-finished mural beneath layers of dust, inviting him to unveil its beauty. I can't help but feel this is a significant piece, Joe said quietly, admiration lacing her words. It could be part of your father's journey to reclaim his voice. A thrill surged through Mark. This mural contained fragments of his father's artistry and spirit, a testament to a life that longed for expression. As he observed the colors bleeding into each other, he realized this was more than merely a legacy. It was an unfinished chapter calling to him, one begging for resolution not only for himself but for his father too. "I need to finish this," Mark declared, determination etching every word. This mural holds the essence of what he wanted to say, his unreleased hopes and dreams. I will merge his vision with my own, breathing life back into this canvas. With each brush at hand, the power to redefine their relationship through art, Mark felt invincible. He understood that this was not just about his artistry, but reconciliation with the multifaceted expectations and emotions that lay woven within him. He was ready to transform both his father's abandoned dreams and his own intertwined journeys into something profound. The shadows that had once threatened their bond began to dissipate, surrendered to the light of artistic creation flourishing before them. Every stroke of the paintbrush that followed the mural's contours became therapy, a cathartic release for both father and son, bound together even in absence. As Mark began layering vibrant hues, he could almost hear echoes of his father's laughter, feel the weight of his approval cascading through the air. Piece by piece, the mural became a narrative, his father's journey interlaced with his own, a celebration of aspirations unfulfilled but ready to be transformed into reality. The mural stood as an affirmation of resilience, a testament to inherited strength, illustrating that through facing truth, confronting fears, and reclaiming passion, one could weave a story worth telling. Mark stood tall, shoulder to shoulder with Mia and Joe, realizing that this endeavor was not only about the unveiling of his father's spirit, but the birth of a new healing chapter for himself. With every brushstroke, he etched a legacy that intertwined their passions, dreams, and identities into a shared narrative of triumph. As he painted the final stroke of the mural, bold, liberating, it resonated not just as a completion, but as a beginning. Mark stepped back and admired his creation. "This is our story now," he said quietly, a smile breaking across his face. A narrative reclaimed and reborn into something beautiful, and with that acknowledgement, he understood the full circle of transformation had finally arrived. The storm that had existed between them had washed away, revealing a foundation built upon understanding, creative expression, and the joy of mutual discovery. Empowered and unburdened from the weight of unspoken legacies, they were all ready to rise into the light of who they were destined to become. Mark's journey did not end there. It blossomed into a radiant acknowledgement of life's quiet yet resilient artistry, waiting patiently for its moment to sing. Act now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.